Hello and welcome back to Cybersecurity for All YouTube channel. Today in this video we will discuss about the payment card industry data security standards, which is PCI-DSS. In this video we will discuss in detail about the applicability of PCI-DSS and what PCI-DSS is actually securing during the card payment transactions. So first of all, let's discuss about the PCI Council. So this PCI-DSS standard is actually developed by the PCI Security Council. The main purpose of this security standard is to make your card transactions, either it's on the ATM, either it's on the POS machine, or either it's on the online transaction channels, secure. These big card companies in which the MasterCard, Visa transactions, or American Express are the members of this council, and these giants have made this payment card industry data security standards. Now, before jumping straight to the security controls recommended by the PCI DSS, let's discuss how a payment card works. In a payment card, first there is a card holder. Card holder is actually you and me who owns the payment card and uses it to make transactions. Then there is a merchant. Merchant basically is any shopkeeper, supermarket or any brand outlet that accepts the card payment. Then there is an issuing bank. Issuing bank is basically the bank in which the client, who is the client, you and me is the client, is actually open the account, and this bank give us the payment card for the transactions. Then there is the acquiring bank or acquirer. Acquirer bank is basically the bank of the merchant in which the merchant has opened its account. For example, we go to any supermarket for the groceries. The bank in which that supermarket has a commercial account is actually the acquirer bank or the bank of the merchant. Then there is a card scheme operator. So who is the card scheme operator? Card scheme operator here is the payment card brand who provides the gateway between the client and the merchant for the transaction of payments. Okay, moving on. So let's discuss about the payment ecosystem. In payment ecosystem, there are multiple roles. There's a client, merchant, gateway, brand, acquirer, and issuer. So let's discuss it with an example. For example, I go to the supermarket for the groceries, any XYZ supermarket for the groceries, and here in this case, I am the client who will buy something. The supermarket who will accept the payment against my purchases is actually the merchant here. Then acquirer is basically the bank of the merchant or the supermarket in which it has the account. Issuer is basically my bank in which I have the account, and the payment brand or payment gateway is basically the big companies, for example MasterCard, Visa, who act as a gateway between the client and the merchant. So in payment ecosystem there is the whole process, and these are the major characters included in the payment ecosystem. Then moving on, there are the four main processes during the card payment transaction: the authorization, the clearing, the settlement, and the undo. So let's discuss all these one by one. First of all, what is the authorization? Authorization is the first of all when the merchant insert your card into the payment machine. We all do this when we go for buying something. We give our card to the merchant and the merchant insert it into the POS machine and ask for our key. Okay. Then the merchant acquiring bank actually calls or ping the payment brand network. The payment brand network here is basically all the big companies, MasterCard, Visa. This payment brand then communicate with our issuing bank in which I and you have the account. The issuing bank receives the payment request, and after the issuing bank receives the payment request, it checks either you and I has the required balance to perform this transaction. Once the issuing bank has complete the authentication that yes, the client has the required balance, it accepts the request and then the payment proceed. Now the major purpose of the PCI DSS is to make this whole process of buying and purchasing via secure channel or secure this whole process and protect your card data against any hackers or against any adversary. Then coming to the clearing phase, in this phase the receipt has been made to record the transaction, and after the merchant's acquirer bank sends the purchase information to the payment bank. This payment and the payment brand here actually act as a gateway between the client and the merchant and sends the purchase information to the acquirer bank to update the client's bank after the deduction of the purchase amount from the issuing bank. Then comes to the settlement. In the settlement, what actually done here is in the settlement, the issuer bank, which is actually my bank, sends the confirmation of the purchase payment. It sends the confirmation that yes, I paid that amount to the acquirer bank, and then acquirer bank update the records, the all the transactional records, and issued me the bill against my purchases. So this is the whole process of the card transactions. First, there is authorization. First, it authorized the both issuing and acquirer bank, then there is the clearing, and then there is the settlement that the payment is settled and bill is issued to the client. And after all, there is again always an option of the undo. Undo is utilized when the client has changed its mind or wants to return something after the payment. In this case, there is a chargeback and payment is returned to the client's account. So let's understand the payment card here. The payment card has the following entities. It has the EMV chip, it has the bank identification number, it has primary account number, the expiry date, and the bank. So first of all, what is the EMV chip? The EMV chip here contains all the data of the card in encrypted form, in secured form, and during it also protects the data during the card transactions activity. Then there is a bin number or bank identification number. Bin number is actually you have a 16-digit card number. The first six digits are basically your bank identification number. For example, I have my account in a Standard Chartered Bank, and Standard Chartered Bank gave me a payment card. So I have a 16-digit number payment card, and the first six digits are actually representing the Standard Chartered Bank. Similarly, each bank has a unique first six digit numbers which actually representing that bank. Then there is a card holder name. Of course, I am the card owner, so my name will be reflecting in this place. Then there is the expiry date of the card. These are all the sensitive data which is utilized during the card transaction, and payment card industry data security standards is developed actually to secure this data. Then coming to the back side of the card, in old cards there is a magnetic strip data which serves the same purpose which is an EMV doing these days. And one more important thing here is there is a unique CVV number. This CVV number is very sensitive data, and breach of this CVV number can be a catastrophe, or if a hacker has access to this CVV number, your bank balance can be wiped out easily. So the most important thing here is to protect the CVV number, which is the most critical in the whole card information. Then what is PCI-DSS? As I explained earlier, PCI-DSS is the data security standard developed by the PCI to secure your card transactions. What includes in this security? It includes the system, the whole system that is utilizing behind the card transaction. There is a whole infrastructure behind the transactions in which systems are included. For example, there are many servers which are utilizing behind the card transactions. In these servers there will be operating systems, there will be hypervisors for the virtualizations, and of course there will be a people who are working on these systems to make transactions secure and done successfully. And then of course there will be a business processes behind these systems. Then behind the card transactions there are some applications which include the softwares, the utility and programs. And of course, behind the card transactions, there is a whole network which provides you the whole architecture, the infrastructure for transferring the payment from my card to the merchant's bank account. Then there is the database that contains, for of course, the financial information of you, me, you, and the merchant whom which we are purchasing something. Okay, what is the focus of the PCI DSS? The PCI DSS is implements on the merchants or the service providers who are actually storing the card data at rest, who are processing the card data, for example, performing transactions, and who are using the card data in the transmission as well. These are all included in the focus of the PCI-DSS, and PCI-DSS implements on these. Then the scope of the PCI-DSS is implemented or applies on all the systems which are directly or indirectly connected to the card environment, and also the processes, people, and the products that are related with the card transactions includes in the scope of the PCI-DSS. For example, there is a server which contains the card data, and there is another server which is connected to this server, and both these server are in the same VLAN. So the server which doesn't have the card data also includes in the scope of the PCI DSS. Why? Because it is connected to the server who actually has the card data. Similarly, the people who are working in the IT department, the information security department, the alternate delivery channels, ADC department, the SOC department, NOC, and HR are comes under the scope of PCI DSS. PCI DSS is implemented on these people. Then there are business processes which comes under the scope of PCI DSS. For example, the IT standard operating procedures, of course, the information security policies, the vulnerability management program, risk assessment, and the BCP. I have also made the detailed video on the risk assessment and business continuity plan. You can check out in the description as well. Then moving ahead, what is the applicability of the PCI DSS? PCI DSS, as I explained earlier, is applied to the merchants, the service providers, which stores, process, or transmit the account data or the card data. Okay. Then come to the eligibility factor of the PCI DSS. PCI DSS has different levels for the applicability for merchants and service providers. For merchants, those merchants who have annual transactions above than $20,000, they are included in level 4. Then those merchants who have annual transactions between $20,000 to $1 million, they are in level 3. Similarly, $1 million to $6 million annual transaction merchants comes under the level 2, and above $6 million transactions comes under the level 1. Then there are providers providers who have annual transactions of $300,000 comes under the PCI DSS scope, and the PCI DSS must be implemented on these service providers and merchants. Then what is the significance of the PCI DSS? Why PCI DSS is important, and why the fintech, financial organizations, and the financial regulators emphasis on the implementation of the PCI DSS? Because PCI DSS actually helps to prevent your financial data from the breaches and the theft. Also provide a structured framework to the cardholder data, and also provide a security infrastructure to secure not only the card data but also to secure the other financial data as well. It also encourages the continual improvement and help us to for the identification of the threat and vulnerabilities. For example, in the PCI DSS, there is a repeating cycle of the ASV scans, the authorized vendor scanning, which is done in every quarter. So this is the perpetual process to maintain or secure your infrastructure. Then PCI DSS emphasis on the awareness and the roles and responsibilities of everyone that comes under the scope of PCI DSS. Okay, so moving straight to the requirements of the PCI DSS, there are basically 12 main requirements of PCI DSS, which comes under the 6 main objectives. So the first main objective of the PCI DSS, it says build and maintain a secure network and systems. Explaining this, what it's actually saying that install and maintain a firewall configuration to protect the cardholder data. For example, you must have a state-of-the-art firewall, and it must be configured correctly so that it can protect the cardholder data during the transmission. Then do not use vendor supplied defaults for system password and other security parameters. It's a common practice in IT organizations. When you acquire something from the vendor deploy that solution, and there is a default password of admin, and the people keep on using that password without changing it. And here is the main cause of the data breach. So PCI DSS emphasis on do not use the vendor supplied default passwords for your security parameters. Then the next objective is protect cardholder data. Here it is emphasis on the protect cardholder stored data, the data which is actually stored on our databases, on our machines, on our servers. It must be protected, secured, and encrypted. So the next thing is encrypt the transmission of cardholder data across open and public networks. For example, PCI-DSS is the emphasis on the security protocols across the network, or the IPsec tunnels must be used, or secure or encrypted channels must be used when the card data is processing over the network. Then the next objective is maintain a vulnerability management program. So what's this vulnerability management program is saying? We must protect all the systems that contains cardholder data against any malware and regularly update the antivirus, the EDR or XDR software programs, and the applications which are developed that will aid the card transactions or that will help or in the card transactions must be developed secure. The secure software development practices must be used, and after the development of application for any financial activity, the that application must be thoroughly or tested via penetration testing or risk assessment procedure as well. Then there is the implementation of strong access control. Access control is one of the main thing in implementing the cybersecurity controls. So there are two types of access control which PCI DSS emphasis is here. The first is the logical access control, and then there is the physical access control. In logical access control, what PCI DSS is saying is restrict access to the cardholder data. Here the cardholder data that is stored on the machines, the servers, the database. So PCI DSS is actually emphasizing on restrict any unnecessary or any unauthorized access, or any restrict any person who is not authorized to access this data. And the access should be granted according to the business need to do. For example, if someone has a role of working in with the card data, he or she only authorized to access the cardholder data, and rest of the person who are working in the fintech or any organization who don't have the role of managing the card data does not have access to the card data. Then identify and authenticate access to the system components. System components must have a strong authentication procedure. Then the third thing is it is emphasis on the physical access control. So um, by explaining this, there are the data centers in the organizations, in the service providers, in which multiple servers are placed who store the cardholder data. So the PCI DSS is emphasizing on this securing that physical environment as well, and physical and access control must be implemented on the data center, which contains the machines consisting of the cardholder data. Then the next objective is the regularly monitor and test the networks. It is a recursive or perpetual process in which the PCI DSS is enforcing on the track and monitor all access to the network resources and cardholder data. You must be regular monitor the network traffic via a SIEM solution, the XDR, the EDR, and all other the security tools that are implemented on the SOC. So PCI DSS is emphasizing on or enforcing the track and monitor logging and monitoring of all the network traffic that is accessing the cardholder data, and any unauthorized traffic or any malicious traffic must be captured or blocked in a right time or real time. Then there is the regularly testing security system process. Of course, the machines, the routers, the switches, networks, servers in which the card data is processing must be tested regularly and must be patched regularly, so that there will be no security flaw left behind that will cause a security breach. And after all that, maintain an information security policy. As I have explained earlier in my videos, that information security is the high level policy, is the high level governing document that actually governs the whole department. So information security policy basically gives you a guideline or way forward to how you implement the information security in a card data environment. So an information security of organization is developed in a way that it must addressed all the security controls for the for the protection of the cardholder data. And finally, in this video, the PCI DSS version 3.2.1 is currently in use, and PCI DSS version 3.2 has over 250 controls, in which we have discussed there are the 6 control objectives, and there are the 12 major subjects area for each control. So That's all for this video. In the coming video, we will discuss in detail about these 12 major subjects and how to implement the PCI-DSS in an organizations. What are the main steps before going for the PCI-DSS audit? And we will discuss in detail about each and every major subject areas. Till then, this is it.